Spring training has just begun, so let's get an update of what's been going on in the early goings of camp with LaMond Pope of the Chicago Tribune on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert at SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Well, it's only been a few days into spring training, but I felt like it was necessary to get an update as to what's going on in camp, especially with all these position battles going on. Chicago Tribune beat reporter LaMond Pope was nice enough to join the show to go over Luis Robert Jr.'s recent comments about this being his team, the position battles, and how Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith have looked, and what it was like to cover a 121-loss team in 2024. All right, thanks for joining me, LaMond. So right off the bat, did you find it interesting Luis Robert Jr. said this is his team? And I just more say it is, why would anybody really want to claim this team as theirs with just how bad they're supposed to be?
Well, he's someone who's obviously, it's the organization that he grew up with. Coming into, they brought him over here and given him every opportunity to play Major League Baseball. That's something that everybody who's sort of in these situations sort of says, right? When you're on a team, you want to, you're trying to play ball and play best that you can for that particular ball club. And then if something happens as far as a trade down the line, then you go to a new situation. And so, it's a little bit of, of the appreciation of, hey, this is the organization that believed in me from the get-go. But it's also a little bit of what people say when they're in this sort of situation where there's been a whole lot of trade discussion as well.
Is it more the front office still wants to trade him maybe before opening day because they don't trust him to stay healthy, or is it just, hey, they're looking for whatever offer they can get? If they can get it before opening day, great. If not, they'll hold on to him and maybe trade him at the trade deadline.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, right? I mean, with the injury history, you have to take that into consideration if you're the White Sox. But it's also a situation where everyone saw what he was able to do in 2023, and so you don't want to be in a position where you're selling too low and the return isn't going to be suitable, for what the White Sox would want. But it's also a situation where, and it's not, the injuries that have taken place. It's not like he's been running into center field wall or something like that. Last year's one was rounding first, going to second. For a double in Kansas City. And so, if you're the White Sox, I think in theory you would like to try to hold on, kind of rebuild up that that ability to showcase all that he can do, and then trade him at the highest possible level. But you also have to take into consideration that injury risk, and so it's like you're kind of in a last year with Dylan Cease when they made the trade in March, right? And it was a situation with Dylan at least where every single year he posted, he went made 30 starts every single season, and so when it came time to make that deal, San Diego knew, all right, we're going to get someone who night in and night out. There wasn't that urgency I sensed that was necessary because even though he was coming off a down season for Dylan Cease from that perspective, it wasn't as disastrous a year as what Luis was able to have last year. And so, it's a tricky spot for sure, and it'll be really interesting to see how that all unfolds this spring.
So I know it's been early in spring training, mostly just throwing a lot of drills and stuff. But how's Colson Montgomery looked from when you've seen him?
Yeah, I had a chance to watch him go against Jairo Iriarte the other day. I was really anticipating that matchup because Jairo has looked so sharp early on. The ball was just popping during a couple of his side sessions, and so I wanted to see just sort of how he was going to be able to match on up against any set of hitters. And the first person that stepped on up there was Colson, and he wasted no time. First pitch was able to drill it the opposite way, and so the opportunity to get these chances. Overall, I would say he looks a lot more loose, a lot calmer. This is his third time going on through this spring camp and situation. And so, having been there, having done it, you can sort of sense that he's kind of growing on in from that perspective. And, honestly, how much the end of the last season helped, I'm sure that had to play a little bit of a role after struggling so much during the majority of that 2024 season there at AAA Charlotte, to be able to taste a little bit of success there in September, and then to carry it on over in the almost dozen games that he played there in the Arizona Fall League. It gave him build up a little more confidence going on into this spring. And so far, I think it's showing on out. But it'll be really interesting once these games get going, right? I mean, that's one of those position battles that everyone's going to have an eye on. It's all set up for him, for him to seize that shortstop position, but he's going to have to go out and do it. It's not something that's going to be given to him. It's going to be a case where he's going to have to perform. And we were talking to Chris Getz and also to Will Venable just the other day, and both of them kind of echoed the same thing. It's like it's not just what's he going to be able to show at the bat. It's going to be able to see what his full game is at, and that obviously includes making those strides defensively as well.
So who wins in one-on-one, though, Will Venable or Colson Montgomery? Because I saw that you had a quip on that.
Will said that he knows that Colson has a better jump shot, and so, but you can't deny it. Here's someone in Will who was obviously all Ivy at Princeton, and so that's I think it'd be a pretty good matchup. But Will said that the better jump shot is Colson, and so I'll probably give the slight edge to Colson there.
Yeah, I love how you guys got in the in the all the media sessions where Colson's like, well, really in Indiana you just play basketball because that's what you're supposed to, and in Will's case he got into baseball because his mom told him, like, maybe you're still decent at baseball, leave that as open. I thought that was very interesting. So you kind of touched on the shortstop competition being more geared to let Colson at least have a shot at it, and you wrote an excellent piece in the Chicago Tribune. For those that don't have a subscription, get a subscription. Support local journalism, but you wrote on the all the competition there. So in terms of third base, does it feel like Miguel Vargas has that position free and clear, or is it going to be maybe Ramos if his elbow heals, or maybe Josh Rojas since that's his better defensive position?
I mean, that's a great question. And first off, thank you very much for the plug there. But I mean, that's a really good question from the standpoint of, obviously Vargas, after he came on over from the trade, he struggled mightily. This offseason, I think he put on about 20 pounds. And so it'll be really interesting just to see sort of how he develops throughout this spring. I think they're going to give him every opportunity to be that starting third baseman. But then, you sign Josh Rojas to this 1-year deal. You're going to have to figure out a way or place to kind of position him and play him as well. Obviously he got a little bit of a taste, in May, and then also towards the end of the season about some of what Brian Ramos can do. And so it's really, it's one of those things where it's really intriguing just to see, what kind of direction, the White Sox go in this case. As you mentioned, Rojas played a majority of the time last year at third base with Seattle. And he's someone who can be reliable over there. And so I think they're going to try to give Miguel every opportunity to steal that, to become that third baseman. But how that all plays out is another one of those interesting position battles this spring. I mean, and it's sort of loaded. Obviously we talked about shortstop, we talked about third base. Second base is another one. It's like, what exactly are they going to do over there? Obviously, Lenyn Sosa had a really strong September, but defensively, he's kind of shaky a little bit over from time to time. And so can he make some strides defensively over there? Obviously, you've seen Brooks Baldwin play a little bit of second base after coming on up last season. A couple of guys, Chase, who came over from the Boston trade, he's going to get some opportunities. He's an on-base percentage guy, really good contact guy. He's going to get some chances to see what he can do this spring. And then obviously Josh has played some second base as well. And so second, short, third, all those positions are going to be really worth watching this spring.
Quick timeout for those listening via audio on Apple or Spotify, but we'll be back with more of my conversation with LaMond Pope after the break. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And personally, I love the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Like I said, got some right here. My wife and I were trying to eat more heart healthy. Also has this one, I've got the roasted and salted. It's got the perfect blend of just enough being roasted and just enough being salted so you don't feel thirsty, eating a handful of these. Let me show you. I love these suckers. Oh, so good. And I walked into my local grocery store this morning, just a big case of wonderful pistachios, great prices. They got so many flavors too. It's a great quick snack too with no shell options. I don't have to clean up them around my desk here. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, they got in-shell options for your classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Sorry for eating there. Like I said, I love these suckers. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. And hey, please leave a 5-star review. I believe we're at a 4.5. You get these haters out there when I first started out. And yeah, I was getting my sea legs back from podcasting. I think I'm getting, been hitting my stride lately. I feel like I've been accomplishing my goals of entertaining you, informing you, and challenging you. But either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. All right, about catcher then. Do you think that they've actually tailored it, though, to where Edgar Carroll and Kyle Teal probably should go to the minor leagues, or do they actually have a legitimate shot?
You add in, obviously, that's one of those things, again, I really don't know how this is going to play on out. And you want to see the development of both those guys continue this spring as well. Edgar coming up. I thought Edgar coming up, even though he didn't play, even though it was for a taxi squad situation during that last homestand last week of the regular season, I thought that was sort of like a sign of, all right, well, we're going to just sort of give him a taste of what it's like to kind of be in a big league environment, travel with the ball club and things of that nature, and then you make the trade and you add in Kyle there, and it's like, all right, well, how are they going to try to figure out to get them both ready to be able to help on out behind the plate, and then obviously you make the trade for Matt Thaiss, and he's a guy that can be a backup catcher there in that sort of situation, and then you want to try to see how what Corey can do. Obviously he emerged as the starting catcher last season. He had a solid start to the season, kind of tailed off there towards the end of the year, and so it's like you have 4 options there. When will Edgar be ready to take that next step? When will Kyle be ready to take that next step? And then when they're able to take that next step, how do you kind of implement them into the when they're up? You don't want to have them in a situation where they're backup guys and things of that nature. You want to make sure that when they're up, they're ready to play and help out the ball club on a night in and night out basis.
How has Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith looked? Have you gotten a chance to see them throw? Because the social media stuff that they've had, it looks like I'd be terrified to get in the batter box with Noah Schultz throwing a fastball at me. I would be literally scared out of my mind.
Yeah, it's almost like he's shaking your hand by the time he finishes his delivery there. Oh. Yeah, I had a chance to watch both of them throw a live batting practice a couple days ago, and Hagen, we talked to him afterwards, and he mentioned how he threw mostly off-speed stuff. He wanted to really kind of work on his curveball. Obviously, he's someone who's primarily last year in college at Arkansas was fastball slider, and so he's really trying to work on developing that third pitch. And Noah, as well. They both looked pretty. They both looked pretty sharp in their session. I think they're both going to throw again tomorrow, and so we'll get another opportunity to see them in a live BP setting. And so I know that Will was very pleased with what he saw from both of those guys in their first time out there, and so. It'll be really interesting just to see from step 1 to step 2, and then once they actually finally get an opportunity to pitch in a Cactus League game, I'm guessing sometime next week, just to see what kind of steps they're able to take. And so, but I think the big thing for both of them in this situation is kind of getting their feet wet, kind of learning from someone like Martin Perez, having conversations with him, getting to know some of the other guys around in the clubhouse as well, and also just sort of seeing, all right, this is how you go about the day-to-day business of being a big league ball player.
All right, I know you mentioned Jairo Iriarte just a little bit ago, but who is actually? I know it's really early still, but who's kind of been popping off, or somebody that's catched your eye that you're like, hey, maybe they might have a shot at making this 26-man opening day roster.
Well, I don't know about having the chance to make the 26-man roster, but someone who has been pretty impressive so far has been Grant Taylor. We had a chance to watch him throw live bullpen again today, and he was going up against guys like Benintendi. I think Rojas was in that group as well, but having the chance to go up against some solid big leaguers, and so he's someone who throughout so far in the early portions, whether it be a side session or today with the live bullpen as well, batting practice as well, you're able to see just some of the stuff that he has. And so, he was someone that stood out. I mentioned Iriarte as well. I mean, that first day that we were able to watch those guys throw, I mean, just the pop sounded a little different coming from him. And so that I was really impressed with that. And so from the pitching, obviously particularly during this time of the year, pitching is going to be ahead of the hitting, and hitters have only been in for a couple of days, and so getting the chance to see some of those arms and see and listen to not only see what they have, but also hear it as well has been a lot of fun.
All right, got to take another quick timeout for those listening via Apple or Spotify, but we'll be back with more of my conversation with LaMond Pope after the break. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into the same-game parlay. And I always maintain FanDuel's traditional spreads, their money lines, and the over-unders, they are fun to play. But if you want to win big or at least double your money, the futures, the parlays, and the props are the way to go. Plus, the app is easy to use, and you win, you're going to get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as this show is available on all major platforms. And hey, please feel free to leave a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. I got 2 more questions for you. Will Venable, how's he different from, covering, say, Pedro Grifol or Grady Sizemore?
Yeah, I mean, here's someone who coming on in obviously has the big league experience and playing about 9 years in the big leagues, and then the people that he's kind of worked with along the way and building up and becoming and getting this opportunity. Working with someone like an Alex Cora, working with the last couple of years with Bruce Bochy, and so you can sense those presence obviously, and also spending some time like with Dave Roberts in the past and something like that. You can kind of sense, some of the things that he's kind of learned from those managers, and he's trying to sort of apply early on in the get-go. And so it'll be really interesting just to see, when they're kind of going through this whole hiring process. I thought one of the things that was going to be sort of maybe a good step was kind of get your person that you want in now and then kind of grow with them together, right? Sort of like a situation like in Baltimore. They got Hyde in, and they kind of struggled early, but they struggled early together. They got the pieces that they wanted to necessary to get things in place, and then when they were ready to roll, they're all ready to roll together. And so I think that the steps that the White Sox took in getting their guy that they wanted, and Will Venable, I think that's the right thing to do. Is just get them on in. If it's going to be another rough season or two, that's going to be another rough season or two. That's the case then. But you can kind of grow together and kind of work this thing on through. And so, one thing that Chris Getz has talked about is having that partnership, and you can kind of see that already on display early on with Chris and Will and the coaching staff as well.
What I like about Will Venable too, he seems very thoughtful in his responses. It seems like it's very well thought out of. You can tell he's had that apprenticeship with some guys that know how to talk to the media. Whereas, like I covered Ned Yost way back in the day, and the moment they hired Pedro Grifol, I'm like, oh man, I feel bad for you guys on that, because I remember Ned Yost acting like he invented baseball, and I'm like, I could see Pedro Grifol maybe having that. Not saying that you guys maybe not have had a good relationship or not. I don't want to get to that, but I could just see, like, you could see sometimes when Pedro would get, like, doubling down on the bleeping flat, that type of stuff, where I don't think we're going to see that too much with Will Venable. Final question. I've asked Vinny Duber when he was on here, and I've asked Scott Merkin this, so I got to ask you this. What was it like to cover this 2024 team? I mean,
yeah, it was unlike, each season obviously is unique, and each season, I've been on this beat since 2020, and so in my time, obviously 2020, 2021, they make the playoffs. 2022, you just kept waiting for them to kind of take that next step to take that growth, and it never really happened. Obviously, becoming 81 and 81, and then Tony not being able to finish out the season. And then the 2 years with Pedro, and obviously, but this past year, I mean, like if you would have told, you knew that it was going to be a rough season. But no one could have ever imagined something like that. But what it was a situation where night in and night out, they found unique and different ways to lose a ball game, and so it wasn't a situation where I was watching the same thing. It might have been the same result, but it was a different and unique way every single night. I'll give the players and the coaching staff credit for the way that they were able to sort of navigate with us throughout the entire thing, because they're being asked night in and night out, what went wrong, why did this ball game turn out the way that it turned out, and they were professional throughout the entire season. And so and especially towards the end of the year, when there was more national media, where ESPN or New York Times Magazine or Washington Post, they were there for that last stretch as well. And again, I thought that the players and the coaches treated everything professionally from throughout that whole time. I would have never imagined having the chance to talk to a member of the 1962 Mets. And so from the writing perspective, from the opportunity to cover it, it was something that obviously I'm never going to forget, because you're watching some form of history unfold throughout the entire year. And so and they kept it interesting all the way through the end. I mean, that last week, I mean, they come back home, they lose 120, number 120 out in San Diego, and then they come back home for that series against the Angels, and and you're anticipating, you get some bigger crowds with the fans sort of anticipating seeing that take place. But then they sweep that series, and then they go to Detroit, and just even that justification of that, where Detroit clinches a playoff spot the same night that the Sox set the record. And so, it seemed like throughout the entire stretch, just being able to kind of watch history unfold from that perspective and see how the guys were able to handle it, and how they were able to kind of deal with it on a day-to-day basis, made for really interesting stories throughout the entire season.
I can't wait to read when you write this book of like you covering from like 2020 to 2024. Because again, you did cover the White Sox during some of the most unique times.
Yeah.
There's the pandemic shortened season. There's the Tony La Russa return. And then there's obviously the historic losing season. So I hope you do write the book someday, because you have covered some of the most unique points, like especially when you started in White Sox history. LaMond, what do you got working on for the Chicago Tribune?
Yeah, I mean, this weekend we're going to kind of take a look at all the guys that came on over from the Garrett Crochet trade. I had the chance to talk to all four of them earlier this week, and so I'm going to kind of get a little bit of update of just what's life been like since the trade, and how they're adjusting to their new settings.
All right. Well, I appreciate your time, LaMond. Remember, everybody, make sure to get a subscription to the Chicago Tribune. Support local journalism.
Thanks, Todd. Really appreciate it.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout spring training. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'll be back tomorrow to discuss if maybe Jerry Reinsdorf is actually not the most evil owner in baseball, along with the automated strike zone getting tested in spring training. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion with Chicago Tribune White Sox beat reporter LaMond Pope. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube. X, formerly Twitter, at Todd J. Dub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.